you can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
And that is me. No, we actually don't have thunder here tonight, but guess what? I got a funny feeling it's going to be here shortly. Anyway, our guest tonight is Colleen. She worked at the Lizzie Borden home. Now it's a bed and breakfast, museum?
Yep, that's true.
Oh, wow. How long has it been a bed and breakfast?
It's been a bed and breakfast since, Martha bought it in 1996. And the new owners have had it since 2004. Martha ran it as a bed and breakfast, so I want to say maybe 10 years before the current owners bought it. I don't think it was always a B&B.
Interesting.
But it has been, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
It's been a B&B since at least 2004 when the current owners bought it.
Now, you mentioned it was a museum, too. What type of stuff do they have in there?
We have, the current owners went to great lengths to, for one thing, restore the house completely back to the way it looked at the time of the murders. We have a bottle of prussic acid. It's not, the acid isn't in it, obviously, because it's a poison. But we do have one of those old prussic acid bottles that supposedly Lizzie tried to buy on the day before the murders. We've got a lot of her books up on the second floor in her bedroom in a locked case. But if you look through the glass, you can actually see where she used to actually initial all of her books. She would put her initials in all the books. I think we've got a mirror that belonged to her, and I know we have, I think, a couple of dresses that also were hers.
Very interesting. So, you were mentioning, I didn't even know that, she was thinking or was trying to buy poison before the murders took place?
Yeah, on Wednesday, August the 3rd, she supposedly went into a drugstore and was waited on by a gentleman named Eli Bentz. She asked Mr. Bentz for 10 cents worth of prussic acid. Now, prussic acid is a deadly poison. He told her that they couldn't sell it to her because she didn't have a prescription. And apparently, she said, I've bought it here before. I use it to clean the moths out of my sealskin cape. It absolutely would have killed the moths in her sealskin cape. It also would have killed her. But Mr. Bentz, when he was brought around to the house after the murders, couldn't really identify her by listening to her voice. So, it's iffy. There's no. It's a fairly common belief. I'm inclined to believe she might have done, even though I don't believe that she murdered them. But there was also... Oh, I'm sorry.
It sounds like maybe she was thinking about it. But do you know what this poison actually does? How would you give it to somebody? What's the effects of the poison? Because I'm not even familiar with it at all. I'm
not 100% familiar with it. It would have been put into, I imagine, food or milk. It would have been put into, you would ingest it that way. I don't know really what kind of effects it had, but from what I understand, it was very quick to kill. It didn't take long. And the whole family had been very sick for about a week prior to the murders.
Interesting. I wonder if, some murders have been known to give small dosages of poison for a prolonged period of time, for a week or two before they, and then all of a sudden that they have enough poison in their system, it would kill them. I wonder,
right.
When she sat there and told the pharmacist or the person at the drugstore, I bought it before. I wonder if she was giving it to him and was planning to continue, to give it to him. boy, it's something I guess that we'll never know.
No. What's one thing that is kind of interesting, and it actually does explain the fact of the family being sick, was they had been eating the same mutton for about a week, and it was August, and they had an ice box, but they only got one block of ice for it a day. Cooling and refrigeration were not great. They probably had food poisoning.
Oh, yeah. Now, if a lot of people don't know what mutton is, tell me if I'm wrong. It's male goat.
Lamb.
Lamb, okay.
Lamb.
It's lamb. Yep. Yeah, I'm so fascinated by it that I actually tried mutton stew once, and I didn't really care for it.
Well, when I was in the Army, we were, instead of having the current rations, sometimes we'd have rations that was left over from the Korean War. Seriously.
Oh, wow.
This is in Vietnam days. And there was cans of mutton. I didn't know what it was. And I have to be honest with you, the rations they have now, or they've had for the last 20 years, is so much better what they had then. You open that can and the smell alone just nauseated you.
Knock you over.
Yeah, and then when you take a bite of it, you sit there and go, oh my God. I mean, it was, I would never eat lamb or goat or anything again. It was so disgustingly horrible.
Yeah, I can't say as I blame you. I can't say as I blame you.
And if they only had one block of ice a day, that wouldn't have kept the ice box cold enough for mutton or any type of meat to last.
The summer.
No, not in the summer, and not last for a week.
It's probably just an oak ice box too, right?
It was just an ice box.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's not going to keep
no
things
electricity,
cool.
no nothing. And again, Andrew was very frugal. That food was not getting thrown away if he had anything to say about it.
Well, maybe him being so frugal, actually is what caused him to, not survive.
I think a lot of people think that. I think it was definitely part of it, part of the reason. He didn't have a lot of friends in town. He was a very shrewd businessman, but he was not well liked. He wasn't really well liked in town, and he didn't care. But there were probably quite a few people who might have had a reason to be very angry with him. I believe the Tuesday before the murders, there was a gentleman who came to the house and wanted to rent one of the storefronts in a building that Mr. Borden owned, but he wanted to put, I think, a pub or something in there, and Mr. Borden was an avid teetotaler. He did not drink at all. So he wouldn't let the man rent it for that business. And that gentleman was very upset and stomped off. If you were one of his tenants and he heard that you got a raise, he would raise your rent.
Oh,
this is just the kind of guy he was.
Yeah, so
nice.
In other words, he didn't have a lot of friends coming over and saying, "Hi, how are you doing today, my friend?"
Oh, no, not at all. No.
Now, you mentioned was he in banking too, or did I misconstrue that?
No, you're right. He wasn't banking.
I wonder if some of the properties he got for maybe foreclosures and stuff too.
They might have been. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it's possible. Him being as frugal as he was, I would guess that it was possible.
Wow. What more can you tell? I got to ask you, all this time, how long were you at the house?
I worked there for about 5 years on and off. And when I was at home before I left to come out to Washington, I used to visit a lot. I used to visit the house a lot.
Well, how about people that, would spend the night there, bed and breakfast? Any of them have any scary stories that you can remember?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. we have a lot of people. I'm talking like I still work there because it was the best job in the world. But we have a lot of people who would just take off in the middle of the night. They would just
seriously
take off.
They would pay to be in a bed and breakfast and then leave in the middle of the night?
And then leave. And, Leanne would call them and, like, what happened? Did you leave? Oh, yeah, we left because, the bed was rattling or somebody pulled the covers up over me. Like, and that is not in a mean way. I think that's probably Abby, who just kind of goes around and pulls the covers over people who seem like they're cold.
Yeah, but
she was...
It would scare me, wouldn't it? You, James?
It would scare me, but I know you'd already be under the covers anyway, so you probably wouldn't.
I'd be under the bed. Under the bed.
Yeah, you would.
The owner has actually told me, and I've seen this in action, sort of, a couple of times in the room where Bridget Sullivan, the maid, stayed upstairs in the attic. We have a rocking chair now. And the rocking chair will rock by itself when nobody's up there. I've gone up there and walked past. I'll before the evening tour starts. I used to go up and check out the whole house, make sure all the beds looked nice, and whatever. That it wasn't disarrayed from the daytime tours. And I would walk up those stairs and I'd turn that right corner and look into Bridget's room, and that chair would just be rocking away.
Now, I got to ask you, tours, how many people nowadays, because this has happened how many years ago? We're talking 100 years ago. Plus, I mean, how many people still want to go through the Lizzie Borden house? I mean, is it that popular
about
yet?
50,000 a year. About 50. From what I understand, it's a lot. I think I'm going to guess about 50,000 a year. I could be off. I'm terrible with math, so please forgive me. But a lot of people still go. We used to be very busy during the daytime tours.
So what was the average tour like when you take us through one right now? Imaginary one.
Oh,
right when I come onto the property. We'll start there. Me and James are there together, and we want a tour of the place. Give us a tour.
Okay, sure. So you're going to start in the gift shop, and somebody's going to sell you your tickets, and then your tour guide, myself, will come out to the gift shop and gather you all up and have you go to the front door. I let you in the front door, and the first room that you're going to go into is the parlor, and the parlor is directly to your left as you come in the front door. Fanciest room in the house. It's where the Bordens would have entertained whatever company they might have had. Nothing really, according to the case, happened there. There wasn't anything really that happened there. But it is where they entertained the police officers and the mayor on the day that Lizzie was told that she was a suspect in these murders. So the next room you're going to go into is the dining room. Now, the dining room, obviously, is where the family ate all their meals. It's where they ate that mutton stew that made them all very sick during the week prior to the murders. And that's usually where I would tell the story about Lizzie supposedly trying to buy the prussic acid at the drugstore. And you would get to look at the autopsy photos if you wanted to. That's where we keep them. Nice view while you're eating your breakfast after staying overnight. And, we have photos of Andrew and Abby's skulls, and we also have, and this is kind of a really cool thing, one of the former tour guides there, Ed Tebow, who has since passed away, was a very knowledgeable person, and he literally made plaster of Paris casts of the Borden skulls, of what they looked like. And so we've got those as well. So you would have seen those.